Hello, Algebra 1 students, to the third part of your exam review. We did parts 1 and 2 in class. This is part 3. This is the last 5 questions on the exam. What I did is I took those last 5 questions and I gave you one slide for each one, and then I gave you a study tip at the top of the slide, and I'll talk through them as we go. And let's jump right in. Okay. Study tip number 1, use the exam review to find your weak points. Which questions were difficult? Which were easy? Find several questions like the more difficult ones and practice. And again, if you need my help finding that, like if you need me to tell you page numbers, whatever, say so. Okay, tell me. You can tell me by email. I will help you find page numbers. So question 21 on the exam is going to be one that asks you to find the constant of variation for a direct variation given the equation. So you have your equation right here, and we need to find the constant of variation k. So the first thing I should be doing is thinking about, well, what makes a direct variation? Y equals k times x. So that means I want to take this equation and solve for y. Well, in order to solve negative 9x equals 12y, in order to solve for y, I need to isolate the y variable, which is right here, by dividing off the coefficient of 12. The 12's cancel. It's y equals, it's negative 9/12 x, but we can't leave it like that. We need to simplify that fraction. Now remember, I can peel that fraction off like I just did right here. Even though it's 9x over 12, I can peel it off and make it negative 9/12. I just need to simplify, dividing both numbers by 3, leaving me negative 3/4 x equals y. And there you go. Okay, let's move on. Study tip number 2. KhanAcademy.org is a great resource. Using the blueprint for the test, for the exam, for the benchmark, type in the keywords from the skills about which you are unsure, and you can find practice or videos to help. And if you've never gone to Khan Academy, again, it's right here in the title. There, KhanAcademy.org. If you put in .com, it usually just redirects you anyway. Okay, on this one, we need to identify all of the answers that have the same value as this original formula, and they give us the formula V equals LWH. That's the volume of a rectangular prism. We are solving for W. Well, before we start worrying about what all these answer choices are, let's go ahead and solve for W. And what do I do to solve for W? Well, remember, this is all multiplication here. So this is L times W times H. So the only way to reverse multiplication is to divide. And we're going to divide off both of the things that we want gone from that side, the L and the H, giving me V over LH equals W. Now, I've got to look through my answer choices here and see what matches. Now, I can clearly see that this one is exactly the same as what I have. I can also see that this is impossible. All they did was move the variables to the other side, and that this is impossible because they subtracted L and H. Now, this is a common mistake that I see from students still, so make sure you're paying attention to that. We're not subtracting to get rid of it because we're reversing multiplication. We're not reversing addition. This side's a little bit tougher, though. Excuse me. We need to identify one of these is actually equivalent to the one that we already circled. We need to identify what that is. Now remember, if a value is in the denominator, that is like saying we have V, and L in the denominator is like saying 1 over L. So it's like V over L is like saying V times 1 over L. And an H in the denominator is like having 1 over H. Well, we see V in the denominator here. That can't be it. We see our H in the denominator here, but the L is not, so that can't be it. What about this last one? V in the numerator, L and H both in the denominator, and if I was to multiply this, 1 times V would be V, and L times H would be LH. That's it. And those are our two that match the original equation. Awesome. Moving on to the third one. Study tip number 3. Write down anything you remember about a topic. For example, the question we're about to do is all about slope. So if we're finding something having to do with slope, let's write down everything we can remember about slope. Okay, slope. What do you remember? The variable m represents slope because of the verb monter in French, which means to climb. We know that we can calculate slope, so I might write this down. We know rise over run, so I might write that down. We know Mr. Slope Guy. Ooh, gosh, he looks extra disturbing and a little unbalanced there, but it works. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff about slope. Let's read the question. What's the relationship between the slope of line C and the slope of line B? Well, here's C right here, so that's this line, and here's B. So what's the relationship between C going to B? All right, it has changed from, and it's got two values. Oh, typo. Just found a typo there, but that's okay. All right. It has changed from negative to positive. Well, the slope of C, is that negative? Yes, it is. It's going downhill, so it is negative. The slope of B, is that positive? Yes. So it changed from negative to positive. I'm pretty sure we found our answer, but let's read the rest of them just in case. It changed from positive to negative, changed from positive to undefined. That would be going from uphill to going to vertical. Okay, so B would be going from uphill to a vertical line. So it would be like this was C and this was B. So that's not it. Change from negative to positive. No, that's the opposite of what it did. Change from 0 to positive. Well, D would be as if it was a 0 slope to positive. So that would be like this is C and this one is B. Okay, so we know that's not it either. Okay, good. 2 more and we're done with this video. Study tip 4, write it out. Now turn that paper over and write it out again. And then when you check the answer for that one, don't peek and write it out again. If you're looking at the work that you so neatly wrote out, you're not necessarily going to find your mistakes. If you are not writing it out, you're not even going to be able to catch your mistakes. So let's write this one out. We are finding the slope. And what do we want to do in order to find the slope? Well, we want this equation to look like this. So we can find m, so that means we have to solve for y. I hope you see that that's a common theme throughout the course. All right, there's 2 different ways I can do this. I can subtract x first and isolate y, but remember, I can also add 4y to each side. Either way is going to work just fine. 4y plus 9. Then we're going to subtract 9 from each side. Oh, I'm going to move over here because I ran out of space. X minus 9 equals 4y. We're going to divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. So that means here's y equals, I know my y-intercept is minus 9/4. And remember how we do this. We peel it off. How many x's do I have right here? Just on the numerator here? 1x. So peel off that slope. 1/4 is the slope of our line. Because m is the coefficient of x, and our coefficient of x, once we solved for y, is 1/4. So the correct answer here is B. Last one. Study tip 5, know your formulas. Write them out a few times the morning of the exam or at lunch before the exam. And specifically, I'm talking about things like direct and inverse variation, where you have y equals k times x, and y equals k over x. I'm also talking about linear equations, like y equals mx plus b, which is slope-intercept form, and point-slope form, which we found to be one of the more useful ones, which is this. Okay, y minus y1, ooh, messy. Y minus y1 equals m times the quantity, x minus x1, end parentheses. And that actually is the one we're going to utilize here. So what's the equation of a line with a slope of -2 that contains the point -5, 1? Now, how do I know that I want point-slope form? Well, they gave me a point and a slope. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. If you got yourself in the habit of writing it down every time you used it when we were doing this in class, then you probably memorized it already. So y minus the y value equals the slope times the quantity x minus the x value. X minus -5 is x plus 5. Now stop for a second and recognize this says select all correct equations. So not all of them are going to be in slope-intercept form. And if you look carefully, you can find one that matches exactly what you see on your screen now. That's right there. Okay, can't identify any other ones, so let's keep going. Let's take this and solve it for y. So I'm going to distribute -2x minus 10, and I'm going to add 1. So y equals -2x minus 9. Now that, again, we have -2x minus 9. So I now know that if y equals -2x minus 9 is the correct equation, it's not this one. And I can also tell that if I was just to subtract 11 from each side on this one, I would get this one, so this can't be right either. The last thing they did was use some standard form. So let's see if we can take this equation right here and put it into standard form. Now I didn't list that one. That's the one where a, b, and c are integers, and it's ax plus by equals c. So all we have to do in order to get x and y on the same side is add 2x to each side, leaving me 2x plus y equals -9, and we now have our third correct answer, and it can't be this one. I hope you enjoyed our last video. Post in the comments if you have questions about the exam. Don't be nervous. If you absolutely positively need to come in Wednesday morning or Thursday morning before the exam, or excuse me, Wednesday or Friday, I should say, before the exam. Let's fix that. I know you missed my sound effects. Wednesday or Friday before the exam, you can. I will be here at 8:15. Friday, it will be out front. I'll have, at the main entrance, I'll have whiteboards and whatnot. But Wednesday, you can come in, and I'll be in my classroom at 8:15. Thanks, guys. See you in class.